And I hope I have mashed all the right buttons in the right way. I think so. It's on. It says it's recording, and so here we go. We find ourselves in James chapter 5. Thanks, sir. James chapter 5, as we spend a few moments in the last verse of this particular study. This class will continue after James chapter 5, and we may take a straw poll. That just tells me where I am on that one. It gives me a straw poll of what book you might want to study next. So we'll figure something out like that in just a couple of weeks. So if we look at James chapter 1, as we do every week, what is the key to James chapter number 1? Do something. Who said that? Thank you. Miss Brandy ain't here tonight. Somebody gonna have to step up. Do something. That's exactly right, Miss Kim. We got to do something. We find ourselves really good at studying through books like James and Acts and seeing exactly what that first century church did, and then walking away from that on Sunday mornings, Wednesday evenings, saying that was a great study. Never applying those things to our lives, which is the downfall. If we don't apply what God has said, then it really doesn't matter if we know it or not. But James chapter 2, what is the key to success in James chapter 2? Stay in your lane. That's right. You do what you're supposed to do, and let God do what He's supposed to do, and everything will take care of itself. What about James chapter number 3? Watch your mouth and your life, because they can see you. They are watching you. It would be Jesus who would say, don't you know? Do you understand that you're the light of the world? Matthew chapter number 5, verse 13 through 16. And if you're going to be a light, people are going to see it. How many of you looked at Christmas lights this past few weeks? Have you ever seen those? When they turn them on, did you know they were on? Oh, yeah. If I'm going to be a light for God in this world, they're going to see it, and they're going to pay attention to it. Whether they ever obey or not, they're going to notice. Chapter 4, what is the key to success in chapter number 4?
Know how to approach God.
Know how to approach God, that's right. We oftentimes look at Him and want to approach Him as if He is just our next door neighbor. And that friend relationship as what's the guy's name? Abraham. As Abraham had is a great thing, but there's points at times in that friendship where Abraham would look at God and look at the glory of God and go, wow. And so he would know how to approach Him on that level. Chapter 5, the key to success in chapter 5 kind of is twofold, but we'll have to say this way. Stop trying to be rich. Now, that is a whole lot different from God has blessed me with a lot of money. The idea, especially in the King James Version and the wording in that, the idea of rich is not only wealthy, but it's also wealthy and well-known. If you can think of it this way, it reminds me of today's celebrity. If I can stay young, they'll love me. What was the lady's name who gave the Grammy speech and said, you love me, you really love me? Yeah. Because you won an award, hooray, I don't know. But she was basing all of that emotion off of the fact that they appreciated the work that she did. They appreciated who she was as a person because they liked that particular movie. Notice how he begins this. Go to now, you rich men. These are those that are striving to be rich. In 1 Timothy, you notice it's a new year, so I got a new Bible. My pages are sticking together. It's the same Bible, it's just got this one has a black cover on it. Finally. 1 Timothy chapter 6. The same person is mentioned in verse number 9. And here's how it's mentioned. But they that will be rich fall into temptation and a snare. The idea is the one whose only desire in life is for the next buck and to be richer than the person in front of them.
Is he talking about rich Christians here?
Here he is, yes. Yeah, he's still speaking to Christians. He's been speaking to Christians in James the whole time. And if he wavers from that, he makes sure to make that statement. And here, could you imagine that there are Christians in Jerusalem at this point in time whose desire is to be rich? Well, yeah, I can. You know why I do? You know why I can believe that? Because I live in the United States. And we live around that all the time. There are men and women whose only desire is to catch the next person ahead of them. What happened? Who's the richest guy? Do you know, Will? It just seems like a young person question.
Elon Musk, I think.
Is it? Okay, let's say I'm in Elon's position, right? And I'm the richest guy in the world. I guess he can just stop, right? You think he does? You're outside your mind if you think he does. His is now, how do I stay ahead of number 2? I'm already here. How do I get further ahead so he can't catch up with me? And there's going to come a point where we're both dead and we both have nothing. And then what happens? Go to now, you rich men. Weep and howl for your misery that shall come upon you. Are you telling me that the issues and the problems that I would have in life, and that anybody would have in life, are not solved by how many dollars I have in my pocket? That's exactly what I'm telling you. As a matter of fact, that's exactly what God is telling you. You know, rich people, poor people, black people, white people, boy people, girl people, all have problems. It's just it. Go to now, you rich men, weep and howl for your miseries that come upon you. How did they come upon you? Well, for some, they're self-inflicted. For others, there are problems with people around. But the issue falls when they think that whatever type of money they carry and whatever purse or pocket they have, that can change a particular situation in their life. And in this case, as they're looking at their miseries and their issues and their problems in life, it can't. You talk to an older person, and you'll say, what's the most valuable thing that you have? 9 times out of 10, they're going to reply with health. How much is health worth?
Everything.
I don't know. I can show you the scars from a surgery that cost about $350,000. Cost me zero, but it cost somebody. I don't know how that goes down the road. I'm glad it didn't land with me. And here's what the doctor said as he walked in that day. You'll die this week if you don't have that surgery.
You had surgery.
I was wanting to have that surgery before then. You're going to die this week if you don't do it. So what are we going to do? Well, let's have it. And they said, well, our thoracic surgery team is in Miami right now. They'll be back Tuesday. So I guess we're having it Tuesday. They said we're having it Tuesday at 7, 8 in the morning, whatever it was. So hooray. How much is it worth? Did that buy me good health?
Started.
It didn't buy me good health. I wish I could say to you, that surgery fixed everything. That surgery allowed me to live and learn how to live with a body that was less than what God gave to me. It's interesting how all those things work together, almost as if they're designed that way. Anywho, verse number 2, your riches are corrupted, your garments are moth-eaten. Anybody have problems with moth-eaten things in your house? I don't necessarily. I have a lot of cedar in my house, though. That wasn't for me. That just was there when we got there. I don't know that necessarily moth-eaten is as big of a problem today as it was then. But and especially the idea of our riches being corrupted, it's not the same. As back then in the first century, you're dealing with coins. And here is not that the coins are corroded, but rather the coins are of no value. Here's what happens in the first century. Bill has been the emperor here in Rome for, how long would you like to be emperor?
10 years.
For 100 years. And guess what? Time caught up with Bill and now he's dead. Well, I am the new emperor. So what do we do with Bill's coins? We throw all that trash out. So now they're worthless. It's like the change of the emperors. Your coins, your money is corrupted. It's worthless. Your clothes that you strive so hard to get are now with holes in them. Probably not the fashion that we have today is the one that they had back then, where we want all the holes in our clothes. Here they're trying to get clothes that don't have holes in them. By the way, I was shocked the other day. As we were going down to my mother's house, we stopped in just south of South Haven. I guess it's still the same area, South Haven, Mississippi, at those little outlets there. And somebody needed to pick up a pair of pants. Whatever. So we went in whatever store it was, I don't know. And I don't care, because I'm not going to pay more than $10 for a pair of pants, the end. I flip, this is terrible, I know. I flip a tag over, and that thing said $65. I said, how many pairs you get? They said, one. I said, no. They sell them for $10 all day long at the co-op. They sell them for $10, I'm telling you. Your riches are useless. Your garments are useless. Your gold and silver is cankered, so it's no good anymore. The rust of all them will be a witness against you. Why are they so rusty? Well, I have to put them up over here just in case. Let's suppose I have this box full of stacks of $100 bills, as thin as I can get them, and as they haven't been used, they're as thin as I can get them. That's going to be a lot anyway. Let's suppose I have it full of $100 bills just in case. That's good if just in case comes, isn't it? What could I have done for the kingdom? Because if just in case doesn't come, then I've got a stack of money, or somebody else has a stack of money then that they'll use some kind of way. But if I forward that ahead and use it in the kingdom, how much could I do? How many people could I affect? What could I teach? How could I live? They're putting their gold, their silver, they're putting it in places to be used if what if happens, and they get all rusty and you just can't use them, when you could have used it for God, who gave me that money in the first place. Notice verse number 3. The rest will be a witness against you. How about that little phrase? And it's going to be that unused stack of money, that unused portion, that's going to be a witness against you. This is different from like we have insurance policies, we pay into, and hopefully a gigantic hailstorm doesn't come up and destroy everything in your yard and your house, interestingly enough, but sometimes it happens. It's different from that idea. This is above and beyond what could possibly be used to replace your cars, your house, your everything that you have. I got to have this extra. Really, what for? Just in case. It's a witness against you. And shall eat your flesh as it were a fire. That witness against you will eat at your flesh as it were fire. The atrocities that fire will do to human flesh as it will sort of melt it away. He'll say it's going to be a witness against you, and everything that you could put as a gate between you and that fire is going to melt everything away, and everything's going to be exposed. Now, in the South, we have a very distinctive quip for that particular idea, and that is, don't put your laundry on your back porch. Don't put your dirty laundry out to air. Here's what he's saying. All those things you want to do is people just looking all at your dirty laundry. Everything you tried to show, he's going to expose and lay bare. Notice this, you've heaped treasure together. You've heaped treasures together. You've piled it up right here, and we can see it, and that's, all right, that's impressive. But you've heaped it up for the last day. And you and I know, according to Matthew 25:30 through 46, on the last day, it's all going to burn. Well, if my pile of treasure burns on that last day, what really do I have to show? Once again, take that treasure and forward it to heaven, and you'll have something to show for it. Behold, the hire of the laborers who have reaped down your fields. These are going to be groups of folks who, very common idea in this particular day, they have day jobs. They work in this field for this day, for this pay. Tomorrow, they may work in that field, reaping that field for this person, for this pay. But he says, here's your guy. Here's the guy that you have hired to reap down your field. And he's cheating you. Imagine that. He said you've hired him, and he has kept back by fraud. And he's going to cry out. And instead of him crying out to say, Bill, I've cheated you, what he's going to say is, you cheated me. And so he wants the cheated portion that he got, and the extra pay where he said you cheated him. Let's take a quick poll. There is no right or wrong answer here, so don't think if I get a wrong answer, then Billy's going to call God on his little red phone in the office. Would you pay him? Who says yes? Would you pay the guy? Or would you? Who says no? Who says, I'm not playing this little game, Hayes? All right. I don't know if there's a right or a wrong answer. I don't know how he could prove that he was cheated or that he was cheated in the field. And so, maybe you pay him. Maybe you don't.
That's why there's contracts.
That's why there's contracts.
If he agreed to work for a certain amount of money, and you paid him that amount of money.
Right. And that was generally the idea. You work here for the day, I'll pay you. Generally, it was a denarii, which would be 1 day's wage. What if he was the third person in line as everyone was reaping the field, and as that line was going, he just kind of got back in line and said, you never paid me. Give him a second one or not?
That's what the American Standard implies, that he didn't pay him at all.
That's right. That's right. So the question there is, if you didn't pay him at all, what are you holding it back for? Why are you frauding him? Why are you holding that wage that is owed to him from him? Let's see. Well, I'm trying to get ahead of the man who's behind me. I'm trying to get further ahead. I'm trying to cheat my way ahead. I'm trying to buy my way ahead. And at the end of it all, you have nothing. Look at continuing in verse number 4. And the cries of them which reaped are entered into the ears of the Lord of Sabbath. Here's the implication that the man who owns the field didn't pay the man who worked the field. And not that the man who worked the field was cheating him, but that the rich man was cheating the reaper. But there's a phrase in here I want you to look at. And I think it's only used this one time in the King James Version. And it is Lord of Sabbath. Lord of Sabbath. Now, I don't know exactly how you will decide to study through languages. And sometimes the study of languages have to be amended. Sometimes you could start one way and say, that study in that way is not going to work for me. I'm going to have to change the way I'm looking at this. If you look at the study of languages and you take the first time a word is used and use that as its root or its general implication until something is added to it, then we have the word Sabbath, which means
Day of rest. So the Lord's Day.
set apart, all it means. Has nothing to do with seven, has nothing to do with a Saturday. It has the implication is one day out of seven is set apart and reserved for God. That's its first usage. The one we are most familiar with is found in Exodus chapter 20, right? Remember the Sabbath and keep it holy. Now there's a difference on the Lord of Sabbath. There's a difference in that word and the phrase, remember the Sabbath. By the way, just side note for you, that was not institutionalized in Genesis. That was institutionalized in Exodus chapter 20. So, the Sabbath, God has established a day that He wants. This is the day I'm going to require to be set apart. Which means they could do anything legal and moral and ethical throughout those 6 days. On day number 7, that has been required of God for the children of Israel from Exodus chapter 20. Anything on that day would result in penalty. Just like bringing a sick animal to the altar would result in a penalty. Just like having that high priest not found clear of sins on the Day of Atonement will end in penalty. Do you know what that penalty was? Death. And now we've got to figure out how to fish that body out from around that box. Interestingly, history would tell us they started putting a rope around his leg in case that was the case, and they could just sort of drag him out. So the idea here, Lord of Sabbath, is the idea of Lord of the thing that has been separated unto God. Wonder what he's talking about there. What has he been talking about this whole time that's been separated to God? The church. So as he writes there, that you've entered into the ears of the Lord of Sabbath, you've entered into the ears of the Lord of the church, you've entered into the Messiah's ears, and he's already paying attention. How many of you have children? How many of you have ever traveled any sort of distance with children in the back seat, and they're already on your radar? You know, they've done something crazy that morning, they're already on your radar, and you start hearing, hey, settle down. Then they have entered into your ears. You're not the Lord of Sabbath, but you've clicked on them, they're on your radar. That's what it's saying here. This God who is watching, or this Lord who is watching over His church, you've clicked on His radar now. Now He's looking at you. Now He's watching. Now He's listening. Now He's paying attention. Why? Because you have officially put something ahead of Him. Bill, you're in the wrong seat because you're still going to be the emperor tonight. You are the emperor of Rome. And you have all of the ego that a Roman emperor would have. Right? You are the man, regardless regardless of anybody else on the earth. You are number one. And these Romans come in and bring a throne in, and they set it down in front of your throne and say, this is the new throne, and they put somebody on there. Are you going to be happy? No. No, he's not going to be happy. Let me ask you this. Why would we ever suppose that Jesus would be happy when we do that exact same thing? We say, you can sit there, but that doesn't really mean anything. I'm going to actually put the real throne right here, and I'm going to put on it whatever Billy likes. And that's going to be number one. And maybe tomorrow I change it out for this other thing, but that's going to be the real throne. And I'm going to keep you there and let you pretend on Sunday and Wednesday that's your seat, but I'm going to have the real throne in front of you. There's no indication in here that these rich men, these ones who are trying to find how to be more and more rich in the world, more and more known, there's no indication here that they ever missed a service. There's no indication here that they did not talk to people about the Bible when they were in that particular setting, or that they didn't understand what it said. The idea here is that they are cheating the one who deserves it, Jesus himself. You lived in pleasure on the earth, verse 5, you've lived in pleasure and find yourself in want. Well, that sounds awful familiar. Haggai chapter number 1. I got my H's confused. From about verse 5 to about verse 10, he asks them, you plan on putting HVAC in that house before you finish the temple? And theoretically what they're doing is they're finishing up their houses. And all those things are wonderful. And carpet in your house and HVAC, all that thing is fantastic, trust me. But not at the expense of the Lord's house. So in Haggai, they're doing that exact thing, and they haven't finished the details God has given them for his house, but they finished their own. To which he would say, you plan on finishing that? What you got is you've got a hole that you put your bag that you put your money in, it has holes in it. You ever put your money in a bag? You ever put your money in a wallet? You ever put your money in a purse? Have a big hole in the bottom of it and fall out? You think that's useful or useless? Useless. The same idea he's using right here. He says, you've lived in pleasure your whole life, and now you seem to be in want. I mean, they don't have enough to buy what they want to do? Sure. Until they are sort of face to face with the truth. And then the truth is this. You can have every scrap of money on this earth and you'll never be able to buy your way to heaven. You'll never be able to buy your own salvation. That debt's already paid. You'll never be able to buy your way out of sin. You'll never be able to buy your way out of impureness, impurity. I guess that's the better word. But I said that one like it was real good, and y'all believed it. That sounds right, Hayes. You're never going to be able to buy yourself out of into the good or out of the bad. This is what he's speaking of. You've had pleasure, you've had everything you want, but you can't get what you really need when you open your wallet. So how does this rich man do it? If he can't do it by the wallet, how does he do it? Probably the worst way possible for stubborn men. Anybody know any stubborn men? Well, hey man, that went fast. That went fast. All the females raised their hand. And look, if we were running a race, I'm not going to say Amy was first, but she was way ahead. That's because Miss Brandy's not here. Now, the fact of the matter is, what he's going to have to do is take a step back. He's going to have to realize that in his life, male or female, that this person is going to have to realize that they are not first. And because of their lifestyle, they're very accustomed to being first. You can't be first. Yes, ma'am.
This could relate to what was said to the rich young ruler.
Absolutely. Absolutely. He went away sorrowful because the Bible would say he had what? A lot of money. Great riches. You know what Jesus never said to that rich young ruler when he said, I've done all these things from my youth up? He never said, no, you hadn't. You didn't. Well, the implication there is that he's telling the truth. He's been following those things, but he has something in the way, and it's him. And what we all have to learn is ego is not a good thing. And if I can back up, and if Jesus can shine, that's what life is about. You lived in pleasure on the earth, you've been in wanting, you've nourished your heart. You've given your body, as it were, everything that you could imagine to eat and to drink and to take care of it, and those things are all fine. But his problem is that he's done it unto the day of slaughter. You notice that phrase there? Unto the day of slaughter. It's a throwback to the idea when the Assyrians came through. I don't know if you've ever read about the Assyrians. But if you read about them in history, all you need to know are these are bad dudes. They are terrible. They are the king of Assyria has been noted by history to have had in his throne room wallpaper, which is good. Till you find out it's the skins of the kings that would cover his walls. He would fillet people and take their skins and then, I guess, kind of say to you, I hope you make it. So there's never an indication that he would kill them. He would just fillet them and take their skins, which is a lot worse than a paper cut. He would order them to put fish hooks in people's noses and into their lips and carry them off into slavery that way, so that as you're going, you're kind of keeping him from pulling your lips off. How many of you are old? Would you consider old? Okay. If you're too old, he would kill you because he's not running a daycare. If you're too young, he kills you. If you have children, how many ladies have children? All right. So for you ladies who have children that he didn't like, he would, if you had daughters, he would rape your daughters in front of you, poke out your eyes, and kill you. So you got that to look forward to. Gentlemen, he would do that to your daughters and then to your husbands and poke out your eyes and make you be slaves blind. The Assyrians are rough characters. They are bad, bad guys. And notice what he says about them here in verse number 5. You have gone above and beyond to nourish your body with the things that the body needs in liquids and in foods and in rest and in all those kinds of things and in clothing, while people are being led away with fish hooks in their mouth. That's the day of slaughter he's mentioning. You're doing this all at the same time where Israel's being taken over. Literally at this point in time, they are not, but he's drawing them back to history. He's saying, just as if you were doing that while they were being pulled away. You can't stop to help because, your steak might get cold, so you got to keep eating. I wonder why he's so upset with them. Why is he so upset with this group of people? Is that bell number 1? Why would you think he's so upset with these people? What Christian virtue are they missing?
Charity.
How's that?
Charity.
Maturity? Sure. They can't see the forest for the trees?
Charity.
Charity. Well, sure, that's a good one too. I'll take that one, yeah. Compassion and charity, I think, go right hand in hand. And I mean, we could probably name 100 other things along with maturity, along with the idea of looking out for a brother who needs something, or who wouldn't ask and doesn't have and is in need. They don't see that. If we learn nothing else from the rich men that are found in James chapter 5, we learn to look up. As Jesus would say that the fields are white to harvest, and they're also red, full of people who need help. What kind of people? Who cares?
Every kind.
Does your answer to does this person need help depend on what they look like? If it does, that's the wrong answer. Does it depend on what they smell like? Does it depend on what they speak like? As you know, we often refer to and say, we're supposed to do good to those, especially those in the household of faith. That's absolutely in there, and it's absolutely true. But if you back up in that verse, what that verse actually says is do good unto all men, especially them of the household of faith. Now, don't you leave out the first part. How do I plan to take this person from being lost to being saved in a point at which I will not address their physical need? Yes, sir.
Who did Christ spend most of his time with?
Well, are we trying to be like Christ? No, yes, we should be. Who did he spend his time with? Spend his time with the people who needed him, right? He said, I didn't come to save the people who are already saved. I came to save those who are lost. I came to physician to those who are needy. We got to figure out how to address a need without saying to people, you're exactly fine where you are. If I can address that need and meet another need you've never even realized you had, now I've done something. Well, it is that time again. So if you'll mark verse number 6, unless y'all plan on staying for another couple hours or so, I guess we'll pick back up there next week. And I appreciate your time and your attention. And we'll start there next week. Thank you so very much, guys. I appreciate it.
Maybe for next week.